Alright, this is part 7 of the FrankenTruckHD, and I want to start off by showing you the drive shafts that I had shortened and had them both done like I talked about. Still have the carrier bearing, and this was done by Driveline Services of Atlanta. They've done several of these in the past for me for different projects, and I'm always happy with the results. So that's taken care of. Now let me show you something else. I've got, in a previous video I showed the steering column being in place and the brake pedal assembly. Well, I'm going to go a little further now and show you that I was able to use the original brake pedal, and if I let it come all the way back, it'll hit those switches and the mechanism, but that's not going to happen. I'm going to make something where it can't. But I'm real happy with the placement as far as the pedals to each other, gas and brake. Now, that said, I don't know if I can get in there and show you or not. See if my camera will zoom. If you look and you see, this is the pivot point or the ball mount for the brake pedal, and this is the mount coming off the booster or the master cylinder assembly. And I think I showed earlier how those two kind of interact. Well, I come up with something, and I'd seen another person do this. If you, let's say you envision, this is the pivot point that goes in the original brake pedal, and in fact this is the piece that it went through. So let's just say that was your setup. Okay, so that went through and it overlapped that piece, which is, let's just say this represents the piece coming out of the master cylinder. Well, the easy fix is to come up with a connection between the two. You could weld them. I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to induce heat into it, and it was just too hard to get to. Or I could make something to connect between these two, which is what I did. So basically, if I took this piece and I replaced it with, let me turn this around, this piece that I made, which by chance, if you look at it, this is some of the leftover material from the scroll job, and what I did is I stacked two pieces of those leftovers together and welded them. So now I have a nice thick piece of metal. But if I had done this just as I was showing you, you end up with two pivot points. So you would have the one up here on the pedal and then one back here at this second point. The problem with that is, if that bolt, let's just say I'm going to put a bolt through it, if that bolt were to let loose and you hit the brakes, there's a chance it could do that to you and you lose your brakes. So I remedied that. What this will do, you can see there, is that basically encapsulates the rod coming out of the master cylinder. And in essence, I know it doesn't really fit. Let's just say that went around it like that. Then it'll have a bolt go through it. And the whole idea is that if the bolt were to come loose and I push on the pedal, it still can't turn. The bolt will be there and take the load, but it can't pivot. And it fits snugger on the other piece. And this was just some more of this leftover material here, and I just bent a curve to it and copied the shape of the rod coming out of the master cylinder. So let me get that in place and I'll show you how that looks. Okay, I'm going to go underneath here. Now, hopefully you can see and understand what I'm talking about. By doing that, the pedal is, the two pieces are kind of locked together. And I think that's going to be perfect. I'd seen another person do this, but they didn't put the pieces on the edges, and it really bothered me. But yeah, I think that's perfect. And I love coming up with this stuff and thinking about it and having to fabricate. The challenge is there. if we're not challenged, we become stagnant and complacent. And this is really making my mind think, and I like that. That said, a little bit of assembly, and I'll have to get the bolts to get, the nuts installed and all that, and I'll put a lock washer on there. Once that's in place, I'm pretty sure I can start running my wires. Yeah, pretty sure. Who knows? Everything goes smooth. I might even fire it up today. Maybe. We'll see. Well, as a continuation of this wiring mess, I did manage to get things connected. I had to mount this module. Had something to do with the throttle. And I had to make a new hole. It's right behind it where the plug goes through. Everything else is connected, and it's just a mess. Up under the dash, there's all kinds of stuff, and it's wherever I could fit things. But everything's connected, and I'm going to show you something. Lights on. That's not unexpected. I did have a problem. It would start, but the throttle wouldn't work because there was not enough antifreeze in it. There's enough now. It's been 9 days, and I may just have to back it out of here just to show that it will move under its own power. Pretty cool. Well, sometimes you make progress and sometimes you go backwards. And so at this point I'm going a little bit backwards. And the problem is, I'll show you, is this switch. This is the brake switch. And this is a different design than what the original switch did. This just had 2 points of contact, and basically when the brake pedal was back, it would keep pressure on this and brake contact for the brakes. And whenever you pushed on the pedal, the switch would come out and it would make contact and turn the lights on. This setup is different. It has, if you can see in there, 3 contact points, and the front one here, that's for the brakes. And what happens is when you put pressure on, that thing slides over. Kind of hard to do with my hand. The thing slides over and it makes contact, but in the same moment it breaks contact with these 2 back here, and I don't know what those do. Now my concern is if this has the automatic kickdown system in the transmission, that's what these do, is they break contact somehow and make it come out of overdrive. So I could bypass the system and just use these 2 and make the brake lights work. But I really want the truck to be functional, so I have to figure out how to make these 2 work, or incorporate this switch into my redesigned pedal assembly. And what would happen is, it's hard to see, but there's the rod that works off of the Hydro Boost. That rod is what makes contact with this portion right here. And normally this cover would be on here. And also this brake pedal, it's all wadded up here. This thing would sit on the brake pedal like that, and then that rod would go between that space right there. And whenever you put pressure on, push on a pedal this way, that rod would come back and make contact and push that thing in the center there. So I'm gonna have to do some redesigning and try to figure out a way to make that work, because I think it's important to have it. And I've also got a series of lights and stuff on that come on when the truck is running. So yeah, I'll try to figure that out. Like I said before, sometimes you got to get creative. What I'm going to do is I cut off the portion of the post from the 06 HD truck. And what this post allows for is the movement of the switch. I know it's hard to see, but it does move, and that rod presses against that switch. So what I'm going to do is leave that alone, and I'm going to weld a strap between here and here, and I'll set my pedal to where I want it and weld a strap to that. And by doing so, that'll take care of that pin location, and it'll just basically extend the pedal a little bit, and I think that'll take care of it. I think that's probably the easiest way to solve this problem, and I'll make sure it's welded solid so it doesn't cause any problems. Well, hopefully this works. You can see the strap that I made, and the alignment's pretty good. All I have to do now is install the switch, clip it in place, and see how it works. I'll have to put the return spring on too. Well, I think I solved it. As I showed you, I welded on that heavy strap, and I located the pin from the other brake pedal assembly. But the problem was that it didn't line up exactly right. Part of it was this brake switch, which was kind of fun when it came apart and pieces went flying everywhere. This sitting on this pin was at an angle because of this little hump sticking out right here by my thumb, and I could not make the thing. I didn't feel comfortable with the way it was moving because it was binding. So one thing I felt like I needed to do was relocate the pin more to the left, and that's what I did. You can kind of see there. But another thing, I raised it up as well, and it had more to do with the wiring for this than anything else, because once I had it assembled and test fitted, the wiring interfered with the steering column, or it would not even go in with the steering column. So I had to raise it up just a little bit and move it in to the left. And I've tested it, and I'm pretty confident with this setup. And I'm going to install that and show you how that looks. Well, that's all reassembled. I ended up taking the wire and going underneath to plug it in so that it would clear. And now you can see that, and here it is moving. And see that rotation is what I had to fix by moving that pin forward and up a little bit. But I think that'll take care of it, and that gets me in my switches that I need, and hopefully that'll clear some of the lights on the dash. Well, I still have a bunch of lights on, but it's going to let me move. See what happens when I put it in drive. It is moving under its own power, so that's a plus. Kind of scared to take it out on the road without knowing whether it's going to act up or not. But there's your proof.